Welcome, Broncos fans. We are your host, Ron White and Thomas Hall, and this is the Orange and Blue View, a show where we bring you two different perspectives on everything Broncos. And tonight, we've got some mystery candidate to talk about, candidates, actually, with an S, plural. We're going to dive into that and other coaching questions. So be sure to jump into the chat with your comments, and we'll talk about them when we see them. But yeah, Ron, Ron, this is an interesting development, really. Mike Kliss comes out and said that the Broncos are in contact with some mystery, unknown candidates, right? Unknown candidates. But from my perspective, if they are in contact with them, it can't be somebody on someone else's roster, so to speak. They can't be employed somewhere, even in college. So this is kind of a earth shattering mystery candidate that everybody's buzzing about. But tell me what you think. I mean, jump into this mystery candidate, Ron, just for a second.
Well, we're all trying to figure out who it could be.
Yeah.
Like, who's on this short list of mystery candidates? I know there have been a few names that have been poked around, but it's very astonishing, especially during this time in the process, to have a separate list of mystery candidates. It's very mind-boggling. And I believe this all starts back along the lines, right, of the Broncos have their preferred list. There's some other veteran candidates. It has to be someone on the veteran side, to your point, Thomas, that they may have been talking with. And just be very curious to see who this veteran person is and what connections they have with the Walter Penner group. Maybe some folks know Condoleezza Rice,
Yeah.
that they've been talking to for a while. So it's I've been guessing and kind of going back and forth ever since this news has been released to see who it's been, but I've hit the wall of who of who this could be.
Yeah,
You know?
you're right. I mean, I put out an article with a list of names that I could think about, and I had to go down the list for a while and be like, well, it can't be Bruce Arians because he's a consultant. He'd have to have permission. So I mean, I came up with Jason Garrett, Chuck Pagano, Lovey Smith, Cliff Kingsbury, Mike Sherman, Mike Smith, Brad Childress, Bill Cower. I mean, and Herm Edwards, Tom Coughlin, we're like digging deep, right? Like Mike Shanahan and Mike Holmgren. This is who I'm thinking of, right? Lovey Smith just got canned, so he's an option. No, Cliff Kingsbury is in Thailand, so I mean, I don't think they're in contact with him. Maybe they are. So I mean, we're talking some digging deep into the bucket. So man, this is funny. But I'm going to hit Dylan Von Arks jumping in here
Thanks,
with a
Dylan.
comment. Says, "Sup Broncos country. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. Absolutely, please hit that like button." Joe Brewer's coming in. Thank you. And he
Thank you,
says
Joe.
there's no mystery candidate. Like Eric said last night, it's PR spin trying not to make it look like the Broncos get left holding the bag. Well, Joe, that may be true, right? Who knows what started this whole thing. But Mike Kliss is pretty well connected with the Broncos. I kind of have to take him at his word, that there is somebody out there that they're talking to. But you could be right. You could be right that this is just some sort of buzz that they want to get going because they've kind of failed. They failed in bringing in the candidate they want so far, it seems. I mean, on face value, we've been looking at social media, we've been looking at the news reports. The Broncos seem to be down to their third to fourth candidates already. So maybe that's what it is. What do you think, Ron? Do you think it's just something to bring up to kind of lessen the blow for going so far down the list?
I really think it is. It again, they've had their list of candidates, and now that those folks have fallen through, it's more along the lines to lessen that blow, to see exactly how we can give the Broncos fan base some hope that better days are ahead. It's very, we all wanted after the Jim Harbaugh fell through, and we also went to our 1A of Sean Payton. And of course, there have been those reports over the past few days, with the blowback, which Payton has since correcting Ed addressed. And now there was a D'Amico Ryan of he was the top tier candidate for the Broncos, and it looks like he may be going to Houston. Houston is that's their top target. So with all these dominoes starting to somewhat fall, that's their way of saying we have someone else that we're going to surprise you with. And I don't know, if it's to be taken as a good surprise, a bad surprise. Like, where do we go? Because Broncos country, they're starving. They're starving for that steadying force to help them win more games. So
Yeah.
you could be right though on that front.
All right. Well, let's talk. David Youngkin's coming in saying, and thank you for coming in with this comment. What do you think about Tony Dungy? Now, he wasn't on the list because for some reason that name to me is like even more far fetched than like Bill Cowher, right? And that's why I didn't put him on the list. And we're going to go down this list because number one, it can't be someone, it can't be Gannon, it can't be Steichen, it can't be Brian Callahan from the Bengals, because if they're in contact with him, unless they're contacting through somebody that they know, so a family member or something. And one of my buddies brought that up, that maybe they've got like some sort of back door connection. But if we're taking at face value, we're saying that this person has been contacted by the Broncos. It cannot be Gannon, it cannot be Steichen, it can't be anybody that's on under a contract without permission, and they'll get in trouble. Even, I mean, who knows if it's just a basic, small talk, it could still be construed as something bad. So they can't be talking to those people, right? So it really is like, I mean, seriously, the real can't. I mean, I know Mike Shanahan, his name has been kicked around a lot. I don't think it's him. Mike Shanahan wants full control. I think, and that bridge has been crossed. That ship has sailed. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, that's a long shot. Jason Garrett's not a long shot. Chuck Pagano's not a long shot. Lovie Smith's not a long shot. Maybe Mike Smith. I can't. Herm Edwards. I mean, we're digging Herm Edwards. I mean, that's going pretty deep into the bucket, so to speak, to find a surprise candidate if we're getting down to Herm Edwards. But let's talk about the first three that I mentioned. I mean, those are realistic, really. Jason Garrett, Chuck Pagano, Lovie Smith. Why don't you give me your thoughts on those three, and then I'll give you my thoughts, and we can start to banter back and forth.
Yeah, and again, thank you, David, for the comment. Much appreciated. So the three you mentioned, they don't move the needle much for me, Thomas. Chuck Pagano was okay. He had a okay stint in Indy. I think what the Broncos are looking for, is more of a steadying force that can command an entire team, that can command the locker room. And given Chuck Pagano's presence, I'm not sure if he will be able to do that.
Yeah.
Lovie Smith is good. Um, you know, given the situation that transpired in Houston last year, given his roster, right, things of that nature didn't go as according to plan, but it won't be a bad pick, but that's not my preference, and I don't know if he would be the right coach for the Denver Broncos. I think it would also have to depend on the staff that he aligns or surrounds himself with to maybe give this roster and this team some hope. So we'll have to see there on the Lovie Smith front. And then the third person you mentioned, Thomas, I'm sorry.
So Lovie Smith, Chuck Pagano, and Jason Garrett.
And
Those are
Jason
the
Garrett. That's
yeah,
correct.
yeah,
And Jason Garrett, I don't think he would be the right guy for this
yeah.
job either. He in Dallas, there were a lot of things when he was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys that there were more than just the offense that was going on, and I know it was some other things going on that may have not really all been his fault, but I'm not sure if he would be the correct person to help steer this ship. Again, it would really depend on the staff he brings around him, because I'm thinking along the lines of, okay, who would the OC be, right? Who would be the offensive line coach? Because then these are things you know that need to get fixed, and not only that, would he be that voice to command their locker room? And we've seen that in Dallas, he just wasn't that voice. So him being in Denver, would he be the same? more of a just a steadying, going with the flow type of guy. And that's why we all wanted the Jim Harbaugh and the Sean Payton, because we know their personality. We know they can command a locker room. We know they can run a team.
Sure.
And so that experience is what we need for this roster.
Absolutely. Before I get into my little take on those three, I'm just going to give a shout out here. Bridge the Gap. Thank you for coming in with a super chat. It says
Thank you, bro.
Orange and Blue forever. Bridge the Gap. Go check out the music. Thank you for the support. But yeah, go look up Bridge the Gap. Jump on there. Listen to the music. There's going to be a whole album coming out. So thank you for the super chat. We appreciate it. It's wonderful to see the support. So thank you. Now, I'm going to jump in. Out of those three, I used to love Chuck Pagano. I thought it would be great to have him back then. He's lost a little luster. I think he's okay. It would depend on a lot of stuff. I really like Lovie Smith. I think he got a raw deal in Chicago. He got a raw deal in Houston. I think he's a good coach under the right circumstances. But I'll tell you, none of those three make me, feel good about a surprise candidate like that. None of them do. Not I'm shaking my head. I have been racking my brain like you have to figure out who this mystery candidate could be. I mean, you're looking after those three. I mean, you're looking at Mike Smith, who failed in Atlanta.
I know.
I mean, someone's talking rumors about Bill Cowher. I don't see that happening. He's been out since 2006.
Thanks.
Tom Coughlin is, he's done. Mike Holmgren, I think he's happy retirement. I mean, who is this mystery candidate, that it could possibly be? And I have no idea who it is. I think they're really down to their kind of last few options, which is Jim Caldwell, David Shaw, and Evero is another possibility. But
Yep.
if it's not Harbaugh and not Payton, I mean, Raheem Morris is another one, but he's not a surprise candidate either. So, you know, I think they're down to their third tier, not second tier. I think they're down to their third tier is what they're down to.
Yes, I agree with you, Thomas. Yeah, even their third or fourth tier, and I think those are the candidates that we are really tuning into, zoning into as well. And I heard from, I think it was on Twitter, that Raheem Morris, I think he's been interviewed with the Colts, and I think that interview went well, and I think there's a second round. So, he may be off the table here shortly as well,
That's
depending
true.
on what the Colts do. But yeah, so we'll see. Thank you, Michael Ronquillo, for your comment. Much appreciated. He says, "Good evening, Thomas Hall and Ron White on the Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos." Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the support, Michael. You're always on here giving the Mile High Huddle team a support. And don't forget, subscribe to Mile High Huddle YouTube, like the show, follow Ron on Twitter at Ron White NFL. Follow me, Thomas Hall NFL on Twitter. If you want some tips, some football talk in between these shows. And in the meantime, we're going to get Jack Smith's comment coming in. He says, "Where is the spin coming from? The owners have said nothing and are keeping very tight-lipped. Could the mystery candidate just be a Twitter troll?" Yeah, the spin is coming. I don't know if it's spin, but that is coming from Mike Kliss. And Kliss is the most well-connected person in Broncos country. And, we can always assume that they're trying to get some spin going. They want him to, I mean, I don't buy that too much. I don't buy that these reporters are just doing the bidding of the Broncos. They may to some certain extent, but this is a reliable source saying it. I don't think it's a Twitter troll unless somebody tricked him. They're contacting somebody who we don't know about. So I got to take it at face value, at least a little bit, and that's why we're talking about it. It sounds crazy. It sounds nuts. I mean, Ron, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's a Twitter troll? Do you think someone's been tricked?
Yeah, on the surface, I see where the comments come from. On the surface, it does sound crazy, like a crazy idea, but this is the mouthpiece of the Denver Broncos, Mike Bliss, and whatever he says, I usually take it for his word at face value, and there has to be some sort of way to quote unquote save face, because again, these other candidates, their top candidates, have failed, and we
Yeah.
have to have some sort of way to let Broncos country know that there's a mystery candidate out there with years of experience that can really turn this thing around, and that so it's really a way to give us some hope. I think that's the spin from at least the folks in Broncos country. So
All
at
right.
least
Phil
that's my perspective.
McLaughlin. Okay, yeah, Phil McLaughlin saying, good evening, Thomas Ron and Deacon Scott. Well, Scott's not here today, but we got Chad in the background helping us out, so that's great. But Scott's usually
Yep.
here running the show. He says, let's just get an interview set up. I'm fed up. Go Broncos, get Rex Ryan. Well, that's one that I didn't think about. I appreciate you coming in from Facebook
Thanks, Phil.
stars. That was wonderful. But Rex Ryan, bring it down. Yeah, that's one I did not put on the list. And some of them were just so absurd. I just couldn't put them on the list. I mean, I could be dragging up names from who knows where. Rex Ryan, that's a good one. But I'll tell you what, this is the thing that I have a problem with, right? When Walton was announced as the owner, I was skeptical because I used to work in retail. I mean, in the corporate office doing some M&A. I had some run-ins with the Walton folks. I know how they kind of ran that show. I'm not saying that's a bad business. It's a great business model, but running that business like an NFL like that business is not how you do things. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And when they started hiring these brilliant minds, I mean, these guys are good business minds. I mean, you've got Condoleezza Rice, you got Penner, you've got Hamilton. I mean, this is a good team. But when they brought in David Shaw, and I wrote an article about this, will be pub soon, it made me think that they were treating this interview process like retail, where it wasn't what you knew, it's who you knew. David Shaw is not a top ranking candidate anywhere. And he shouldn't even be a top ranking candidate. He's got a relationship and they're interviewing him. And if you look at his track record at Stanford, it went nothing but downhill after he took over for Harbaugh. So now I'm thinking, okay, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but now this process has really looked like they've botched it. It looks like they botched it. And before I continue, I'm just going to say, Jonathan Peterson, one, come into the super chat. Man, we enjoy seeing this on here. We enjoy seeing you on here, and we enjoy your comments. So thank you
Thank
for
you,
the
Jonathan.
support. And his comment is, I think it's damage control, setting us up for stopgap coaching staff. Well, hey, Jonathan, we have to speculate because the list that we've come up with is gotten so absurd that you almost think that that's what it is, right? I mean, Ron, what do you think? I mean, this is the list. I mean, I read the list to you and we put it up on the screen. Some of these names are far-fetched names. So you could be onto something, and I hope it's not it, man. I hope it's not it. It is Broncos country, like you said, Ron, is starving for something good after these last several seasons of mediocrity, losing, and then the Hackett debacle, I didn't think it could get worse, and it got worse under Hackett. What do you think? You think they're setting us up for disappointment and hoping for the next season?
Again, thanks, Jonathan, for your support. We appreciate that greatly. I hope not. I hope they're not setting us up for a stopgap method for the following season. That would just be ridiculous. We need to. We've tried it at quarterback all these years, right? These past 6 or 7 years,
Yeah.
and look where it's gotten us.
Yep.
So I would hope that the Walter Penner Group would have the same mindset to say, "Hey, we've done this at quarterback. Let's not have the same thing happen at the head coach level." So I would hope that with this mystery candidate, they've thought this through, and maybe again someone that we did not even dream of having would be the right fit for this. And then also, Thomas, my thing is it's always going to be dependent upon who they bring in as the staff around them. That's really going to be the key for anybody coming in as the head coach. Of course,
Yep.
it would be nice to have the person at the top be the driving force, changing of the culture, but we're going to need a very good OC to help turn Russ around, a very good offensive line coach, a great special teams coach, right, to get this thing back on the track. And having someone do that in a stopgap type of level just doesn't seem effective at all. So I would hope that they would think this through, which is why I think they've this has been prolonged, although they've kind of missed out on their initial reads, right, from some of their preferred candidates at the top. I would at least hope that they've thought this through and think about what the impact and the staff impact would be as a result.
Absolutely. RD coming in with a super chat. All
Thanks,
right.
Artie.
Appreciate it. RD says Cliss would only report this if Broncos told him. Believing there are any other mystery candidates in it, this isn't just a distraction. That choice 1 through 4 declined is naive. No one good wants this job. Well, I disagree a little bit with you on that, and I appreciate the support. We both do,
Yes.
and thank you for coming in. The Broncos' job is desirable for if you think about the money that's available. You think about the facilities. You think there's some issues. The Broncos have been pretty poor, but people were going to the Detroit Lions. They jumped at the chance to go to the Detroit Lions, who have been miserable for years. The Cleveland
Yeah.
Browns don't have any problem hiring people. They just make the bad mistake. But if this is some sort of kind of scam to just hire somebody in tank or do whatever, who's going to take that job? Who wants to be the person like Lovie Smith that stepped into a one and done coach that didn't give a chance in David Coley, and then he steps in to take over the role only to get fired too? Who's going to take that if that's what it is? And I mean, I don't take. Yeah, again, like I said before, I mean, Mike Kliss is his own person, and maybe he's being fed something from sources or whatever, and they're trying to steer him a long way. But to blatantly come out and say, something that isn't true, I don't think he would do that. But I don't know him personally, so maybe he is doing the bidding of the Broncos. But man, I mean, Kliss has been around for 30 years in Broncos country. He's well respected. I take that. I find that hard to believe that it's just some sort of scam. But we are watching this process unfold, and they keep missing. And we're down to, candidates that don't get fans excited. Fans were no shows last year at the end of the year. There were no shows, and now you're going to give us Jim Caldwell or David Shaw. I mean, something that's not exciting. So, I mean, I can see why you're thinking that, RD. I can see why people are thinking that this is just some sort of scam because they've messed it up so bad, right?
Yes. Yes, and
I
I could
mean,
also see. Yeah, and I could also see that as well, Artie. Right? It's again they've missed out on their preferences, and now they're just scrambling because we're at a point where they have to find someone to fill this position.
yeah.
And I think this is where they were trying to give us that sense of false hope, if you will. So we'll see what happens as a result of that. Um, I do have BK coming in here with a $5 super chat. Thank you, BK. He says setting up to tank next year for Caleb Williams. Well, I hope not. I hope the are not ever in a position to set up to tank. As great of a talent as Caleb Williams is, and he'll be to any organization. We have what we need in Russ. We've seen those flashes in Russ at least near to the end of the season. And the person that comes in can definitely help to script plays and schemes to fit what Russ does best. So if we can have that coach and the OC come in and help turn this offense around, I think we'll get back to our winning ways. What do you think about Caleb Williams, Thomas?
Oh yeah, I think he'd be great, but who's going to come in? Who would want to take the job if it's a tank job?
Yes.
Nobody would.
Right.
Unless they're guaranteed that they're going to stick around. So I have a hard time thinking that's the case. Only because we need wins. The fans need to see wins, or they're not going to show up, and that's going to cost money. So Kenny, Big Big Sky Photo Adventures coming in with a comment here. And he says, I'm thinking Gary Kubiak. His son is the connection to skirt the rules, and everyone is gone now that he didn't want to work with. I would be jacked if Cubes came back. Thoughts? Well, Kenny, I appreciate the comment, and I appreciate you jumping in here. But I will say this. Kubiak stepped down for health reasons.
Right.
And he's taken other jobs, but he hasn't been committed to even like offensive coordinator jobs for long term. I still think he's concerned about his health. I think you're right. He could be getting talked to through Clint Kubiak, but I just don't think Gary Kubiak wants to come in and coach again. I mean, he made it pretty clear. He had just won a Super Bowl. He went 9-7 with Trevor Siemian. He was still a good coach, but his health was failing, and it was too much for him. So, I mean, I do like the point that they have a back door to talk to somebody. I'm just afraid Kubiak's not the one. I would love for Kubiak to come back, man. He's been a part of all the Super Bowl wins. He's been part of going to some of the Super Bowls. Like he's a one of the one of the greats from Broncos of lore. But I have a hard time thinking it's him. And I would have put him on that list if I thought that he actually had a desire to come back. I just think his health is not going to allow that. Ron, why don't you jump in there and ask? What are your thoughts on Kubiak and whether or not he can come back?
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. Again, thank you for your comment, and I agree with you, Thomas. I don't see Kubiak coming back either, at least in the capacity of a head coaching role. It would be more. I know he's had some consulting and advisory type roles before, and maybe bringing him back in that capacity would be helpful. Would be a value add for this team, but definitely not in the head coach, just because of those health reasons
Yeah.
that Thomas alluded to. He just won the Super Bowl, and I think it was kind of taking a toll on him, and he had to leave just due to that. But coming back for that, I just don't think it'll be worthwhile. Now, I'm with you. I would love to have Coobs back. I thought
Yeah.
Coobs was a great head coach, a great quarterback whisperer. His scheme really did help us, um, with the run game. So it would
Yeah.
be a great thing, but I just don't see it in the cards.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little bit of a voice of reason here, just because I mean we are talking about this, looking like it's a mess up on the hiring front, but we still have a little bit of time to watch this play out, right? So, we may be seeing something on the outside that's not really happening on the inside. They may still be talking to Jim Harbaugh. They may still be talking to Sean Payton. The reports that are out there, don't give us a whole lot of clue, but people are jumping to conclusions. The Broncos were one of the first to jump on Hackett right away last year, and look how that turned out. So
Right.
maybe taking a little slower. And I don't get me wrong, I really want this to be over so we can stop talking about who it's going to be and start talking about who it is for sure.
Yes.
And I hope it's somebody that moves the needle or at least is competent enough to get the Broncos back to their winning ways. RD, come back in. Thank you for the
Thank you,
comment.
RD.
Maybe we'll end up with a second tier coach that ends up great. Yes, and maybe dumb luck is better than being really good. Like maybe we'll watch the Walton Penner group fumble around and then someone fall into the lap that ends up being great, and we can all just look back and be like, "Hey, they did a great job." Yeah, it's a great comment because it could happen. But relying on luck to hope that's because I think if we take what has been happening as we're missing out on coaches like Harbaugh for sure is gone. Peyton is off the table. D'Amico Ryans is going to Houston. It's not the second tier anymore. It seems like third tier type coaching, Ron, and that doesn't feel good to Broncos fans. It doesn't. They were expecting a big splash hire because it wasn't that we were all waiting and watching and thinking it to happen. They've been talking about it happen. They were going to
Yeah.
go out and right the ship with a big, confident coach to come in. What are your thoughts? Do you think we're down to the third or fourth tier here and that they've just messed it up?
I think we are down to that third tier. I think we're there. They, as you mentioned, they promised, the Walter Penner Group promised that they wanted a home run, hit it out of the park hire.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact now that again, as I mentioned earlier, all the dominoes are falling. The top tier coaches are no longer in play. What do we do? Now, you're right, Artie, to your comment of maybe a lower tier coach, more like a higher floor type coach, may be okay. May actually end up improving some dividends in the long run, but we'll have to see it come to fruition first, right? We'll have to see how it all unfolds with coaching staff, with who they bring in with free agency, the draft, things like that. We'll have to see how all that unfolds. But it looks like that's where we are at this point. And that, again, that person could definitely be very successful. That lower tier
Sure.
coach. depending on who it is. So
And
yes.
I said on here before, Ron, and we talked about it. I like Jim Caldwell. I think he's a good coach. And part of the reason why I wanted Jim Caldwell is I thought he'd bring Frank Reich with him, but Frank Reich is
Yes.
going to
Yeah.
Carolina.
Carolina.
So that, I mean, I do like Caldwell. I think he's a good coach, but he's not somebody that gets the fans excited about the hire, right? And that's what we have time. I mean, football is a business. It is an entertainment business. And I know that players go out there and they can get hurt, they bust their butt, they work hard, but in the end, football is an entertainment business. And if you're not entertaining the fans, they're not going to pay you the money and then you're out of luck, right? That's what it boils down to.
Yes.
So hiring someone like Jim Caldwell doesn't get everybody excited. He may end up being a great coach. He may very well may be, but that does seem unexciting. So
Yeah.
Edward Payne, thank you for coming in. New to Mile High Huddle, but longtime fan of the Broncos, he says. And I
Yeah.
love the overload of information. I just can't get enough. Well, I thank you for that, Edward. I appreciate that because I'm so tired of talking about who the coach could be. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Stick with Mile High Huddle. We got a lot of great shows. We got morning shows. We got evening shows. Anything you want, different perspectives. So check them out too. Follow subscribe to Mile High Huddle so you can get those alerts. And thank you for the comment. We got Keith Brugman coming in as well. Love the 66 for Hall of Fame sweatshirt. If we miss out on our top tier of candidates, we need to go through with Evero. Evero, not hot still. Yeah, thank you. I love this shirt. I mean, I'm pushing for Tom Nalen for the Hall of Fame. Got the number 66, Hallworthy, orange hush over here on the 6. I'm doing a big push for him, so I thank you for that. But I was going to just bring this up, and I'm glad that you came up with that comment because it was a perfect thing. Because I was going to talk about Evero, but I'm going to let Ron talk about Evero. He's kind of a forgotten about all of a sudden. People wanted to keep him around, but now it's like, oh, Evero, let's forget about him. He's a good coach.
Excellent coach. And Broncos really need to start thinking about him as their top target. I mean, he's already an in-house guy. Of course, what he's done with the defense last year. So why not have him promoted to the head coach position? Why not? I think he's very similar, in my opinion, Tom. He's very similar to D'Amico Ryan, where a lot of folks on the defense like to play for him. He gets a lot of high marks from PS2, from Justin Simmons, right? They've raved on how they love Evero and his different looks, his scheme. So and obviously Evero has a great personality. He can command a room. So why not bring him on as a head coach? Now, again, I may sound like a broken record, but it's really just going to depend on setting it up for success is really going to be dependent upon who that offensive coordinator hire is, who that special teams hire is as well. Of course, we also have to think about who he brings in as a DC to help. I know he'll probably be doing most of the DC play calling, possibly, or some of it. But that those are really the two main things that we look for. But I would love Evero as a head coach candidate because again, we've gotten to see how he can turn a unit around. Just imagine with the proper staff and other players in place, and with a healthy roster, what he can do as well. So yeah, I'm all for Evero being the head coach. If some of these
Absolutely.
other candidates don't work out.
Yeah, that's you hit it nail on the head. They know who he is. They know what he's like. They've seen him in action. I'll tell you, he comes from a great coaching tree.
Yep.
He's learned from some really good coaches.
Yep.
I would not be disappointed if Evero got the job because he's young. He can grow with the organization, and it could be one of those long-term head coaches. Now, I think he needs to bring in some veteran coordinators to help him out, at least to start with, and then when they move on, he bring in who he really, really wants. Some young up-and-coming guys. That scares me a little bit. 1 year as a coordinator scares me a little bit. But yeah, we're kind of forgetting about Evero, but he did an excellent job. He did an excellent job this year. He had a team, a lame duck team, basically defense, playing hard after watching the offense fail them all year. And they still played good after Bradley Chubb got traded. People were going down with injuries. And they weren't top 5 at the end of the season. I mean, you saw them down, but they still played hard and did good. And he put people in places to succeed. And that's what I like about a head coach candidate. I would not be disappointed with Evero.
And Thomas, you also can say that he single-handedly kept the Broncos in these games, right? The,
Absolutely.
the defense really kept the Broncos in most of
Sure.
these games. So
Absolutely.
when you think about it, and again, his ability to scheme and draw up different looks, I think bringing that to the surface, I think that's a good blueprint,
Yep.
if you will, to help at least steer the culture in the right direction and get
Yep.
this team back to where they should be. So,
Agreed. And Eric Weber is coming with Facebook Stars. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. And he is saying he has a three-part question here. So I'm going to read his comment. Evening, Thomas, Ron, and Broncos country. Three-part question. Any validity to the report that Sean Payton is still a potential candidate? And then will we challenge the Texans for D'Amico Ryans, or do we potentially offer the gig to Evero? Well, I don't know. I mean, it is report after report, people saying one thing, and then I mean, I swear this is the people have been coming out with reports and then taking a victory lap. It seems only to stumble, during their victory lap because they don't know what's going on. It's like, well, it's this candidate now, it's not this candidate. Well, we don't know, but I'll tell you, Sean Payton is probably still on the table if the Broncos are willing to pay what it takes to get him. I don't know if they are. I think they didn't see it him in the interviews as good enough to pay up what they're going to have to pay up. So, but yes, I still think he's on the table. I don't think he's out. I definitely think that the Broncos are going to do what it takes. If they like Ryans, they are going to go after him, and they can pay him more. They can offer a lot of what Texans can't, in my mind, other than hometown. And then, yeah, we just talked about Evero. Evero they may end up giving the gig to him, like you said. And I think that's not a bad decision. It just, everybody's so caught up in the last three hires being first timers and failing.
right.
And that's that, but what fourth time's a charm. Who knows? What do you think about
Right.
Eric's comment, Ron?
Thank you, Eric, again for the comment. Much appreciated. And these are great questions. So, the first one, any validity to the report? Yeah. So, I believe Sean Payton is definitely still a potential candidate. That's probably still with Harbaugh out. That's more than likely the Broncos' number one candidate still. For that, is just going to depend on. We know the Broncos can just dish out money at will, right? So the money isn't an issue. It's just more along the lines of, does Sean Payton want to come to Denver? And again, on Twitter himself, it looks like Sean Payton had a great relationship with the Broncos. The meetings and interview went well, at least the first time. So I believe that's still there on the table. Second question for D'Amico Ryan. As you know, I am a big D'Amico Ryan fan. And when I saw the report that he was the Broncos' top target, I got excited. Just young, up and coming, as I mentioned, D'Amico Ryan has the San Francisco 49ers defense playing at an all-world level, and we can challenge the Texans on his services. We can throw out money. I think the problem with that, it's really just going to depend on what D'Amico Ryans wants to do, of course, with his family, since there are strong Houston ties. That might be why we lose him. But if Ryans looks at our roster and if we throw out money, we can definitely compete with the Texans and possibly win that battle to get him here. And as we just talked about with Evero, uh, we could definitely offer Evero the gig. I think where they stand now, Eric, is no Sean Payton off the table. We cannot get D'Amico Ryan. And with this mystery candidate, I think they're just really trying to throw us off balance. So now that all options A, B, C, the tiers one, 1A and 1B and 2 are off the table, we'll probably just go ahead with the known commodity and just promote Evero to the head coach position.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, what we're listening to out there is Harbaugh. That people are saying Harbaugh's still not quite off the table, even though it seems like it. If the Broncos were to give him an extraordinary amount of money,
Yeah.
that could change minds. But it seems like he's off the table. But the only one that's really off the table, without a doubt, is Dan Quinn. He's off the
Yep.
table. He's gone. He's going back to Dallas. And my opinion on that is he couldn't convince anyone in the ownership group who was interviewing him that he has answered those questions that he had coming out of Atlanta. And once he realized that that group was like, well, I don't think you're going to get it, he decided to go back and which is fine. Go back to Dallas. He's doing great there. But he's the only one that is completely off the table. Harbaugh seems like it, but the rest are still on the table, and the Broncos still have a shot at getting them. This is a lot of intrigue. People, we're in the media. We want to get people to talk about us. We want to get people invested in time into our articles. So it is our job to speculate. And these reports are coming out saying, "Oh, they're off the table." So we're speculating. Nobody knows for sure. They're a tight-lipped group there. So I don't know. It's only Dan Quinn that I am 100% certain is gone. The rest could still happen, some with an outside shot. But I don't know why they're bringing up the mystery candidates. I don't know why Kliss did it. I don't know if they're trying to create intrigue or trying to soften the blow, or if there really is a candidate that I can't think of out there that is like, whoa, that's a surprise, and it's a good surprise. I don't know. Leroy Williams, thank you for coming in with the comment.
Thank you, Leroy.
The heck with Sean Payton, he says. The Saints want too much for him, and his salary demands is ridiculous. Plus, he is not to be trusted from quitting on his team to the bounty scandal, saying he had no idea what was going on. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Yeah, I talked about his character right away when he was a candidate. It wasn't just the bounty scandal. That's on its own is terrible. And I know there's, in the past, their teams used to, under the table kind of things probably hurts, give them awards for hurting people or whatever. But that was still awful. We sat here and watched a player almost die on the field, and you're rewarding people monetarily. And he knew about it. And on top of it, he tried to cover it up. It wasn't that he pretended like he didn't know about it. He actually tried to cover it up, and they found that out in the investigation. So character concerns have always been an issue for me with Payton, because that's something that he's the face of your franchise, so to speak. He's teaching the people around him, getting them to buy into the strategy. And if you have a poor moral character, that doesn't help. And on top of it, he was really whiny about the, pass interference that didn't get called in the championship game. And that turned me off as well. So you're right. Heck with Sean Payton. I've talked about him. He's not my number one choice. Never has been. And I've sent out things. It's not that costly to get him if you think about the overall thing. So they can still go get him. But you're right. Heck with him. I don't know what you think, Ron, but you know where I stand on Sean Payton. We've talked about it before. You there, Ron? I think.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you disappeared or froze for a second, but you're back. I can hear you now.
My apologies. I think I had some connection issues here. But yeah, so for Sean Payton.
Well, Ron is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to jump in and just keep on talking until he comes back. Hopefully he can restore his service and be back into it. But yeah, we're still talking about mystery candidates. We're talking about the candidates that are left over and where this all stands. It's a confusing mess, really, in my mind. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to think. All I know is I want the Broncos to hire somebody soon so we can stop talking about it and hire the right coach. I don't care how they get there. I don't care if it's the fifth choice. The Broncos have got to hire the right candidate. And if they luck into that candidate, that's fine. I don't care. Get some winning ways back. Mike Estrada, thank you for coming with this comment. Do you think Russ reaching out to Sean Payton scared him away? I don't think so. I think Sean Payton's got a big enough ego that he can make Russ a good quarterback, and he has the track record of doing it. I think that what he did for Breeze, and I know that some people have said that, he was a Pro Bowl quarterback before, but Payton's offense and Payton, what he saw in Breeze got him into the Hall of Fame. So yes, I think that Russ being here in Denver is a benefit that Sean Payton looks at. I don't think it scared him away. I think that there's more behind the scenes between the Broncos and the Saints causing what they can give up for him more so than Payton just kind of like walking away from it. He still seems like he's interested. Why wouldn't he be? Ron, you're back. Thank goodness. I don't have to carry the show by myself.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, no, it's
can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So
what do you think about
thank you, Mike, for your comment.
Yeah. What do you think about that Russ comment?
Yeah, so Russ reaching out to Sean. Yeah, I don't think that scared Sean Payton away at all. I think Sean Payton and Russ have a very good relationship. Uh, they've talked a lot about football in the past, and I'm pretty sure they talked, scheme and other things, and how Sean Payton could be a benefit to Russ and vice versa. So I don't think that scared him away at all. I think it really just only helped, Sean Payton's case and what he can do with veteran style quarterbacks. Obviously, we see what we've done with Breeze, right? So you're able to turn Drew Brees around, right? Drew Brees was already good, but his schemes, his methods, was able to kind of get Breeze over the hump and help win them a Super Bowl. And I would say the same can happen in this case with Russ. Of course, we'd have to make sure that Russ and Sean Payton are aligned when it comes to the scheme. And I think that's where Sean Payton can be that driving force and laying down the hammer, not being a player's coach, but actually, you know, being in command, making sure that their skill set is aligned so that they can start building this offense to success again. So I do think that they would definitely work well together.
Great. I agree. James Smith coming in, going to change the subject a little bit, which is totally fine with me because I am a huge Broncos for the Hall of Fame guy. I love the Hall of Fame. I love talking about it. He says, how about Randy Gradishar for the Hall of Fame? Absolutely. Randy Gradishar is one of the biggest snubs of all time. And I support him for the Hall of Fame for sure. I think he's getting in next year. I thought he was going to get in this year. He deserves it. The reason why I'm going with Tom Nalen is because Tom Nalen has some time left before he goes into that senior pool, right? I think Gradishar's a done deal in the next couple of years, if not next year. And if he isn't, they need to burn that place to the ground. But Tom Nalen has some time left before he goes to senior candidate. We need to get him in before he goes into that dark abyss that they call the senior pool because he deserves it 100%. Just like Randy Gradishar should have been in a long time ago, and he wasn't, and he's going to get in. He has to. I think it's going to be a revolt if the voters don't do it. He got scammed out of it this year for Joe Klecko. In my mind, that's my opinion. I think there was an agenda to get Klecko in, and I think it's Gradishar's turn next year. At least Howley got in. It's going to be okay. He'll be in. Keep our fingers crossed, but I'm pretty confident that he gets in. But thank you for that comment. So, uh, vote Tom Nalen for the Hall of Fame, Randy Gradishar for the Hall of Fame, and then after those rights are
Very
wronged,
smart.
we can go on to somebody else for sure. But let's do it. Keith Brugman.
Yes, I agree. Randy Gradishaw and Tom Neal definitely need to be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely you'll get my vote for getting them in there for sure.
All right. Keith Brugman's going to bring us back to the coaching topic that we started with. I know we went on a little segue there, a little tangent for Hall of Fame, but it's always good. He says, woo, Brian Callahan to Denver to be OC with Evero as head coach. They can't do that unless they give Brian Callahan a assistant head coach job or something like that. He's already the OC in Cincinnati. But I really like Brian Callahan. He has got the Denver connection. I think he's a good candidate. I wish that could happen. Give Evero the head coach. Bring Brian Callahan as an OC. But they just can't do it unless they're able to offer him something even more that woos him away. But if they wanted to interview him for just the OC, Cincinnati would block that in a heartbeat. So even though I like Callahan and he should have been on the list, I don't know about your thoughts, Ron. He should have been on the coaching interview list this time around, but he wasn't. What
Yeah,
are your
I agree.
thoughts? Yep.
Brian, yeah, and Anthony, thank you for your comment. Yeah, Brian Callahan should have definitely been on the coaching interview list for the Denver Broncos. I mean, what he was able to do in Cincinnati, and then obviously he has the ties to Denver. So that was very astonishing to me that he wasn't on that list. But to your point, Thomas, that's what I was thinking as well. If the Broncos, I know it would be a lateral move, but if they can pay him handsomely, that might be something to consider, and I'm all for it. I think what he was able to do with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow in that offense was great. In combination with Zach Taylor, so having the same type of effect for this offense at full strength and our playmakers. Um, I would like to see that come to fruition. So I'm definitely in it. And then of course you guys know my thoughts on Evero as head coach. So
Yeah.
um, I'll
So we
be
got
I'll be okay with that tandem.
great. Yeah. King Achuris, I think I got that right. Coming with a super chat. Thank you, King. You are a king in our book for supporting the show. Appreciate it. Crazy thought, he says. What about Peyton Manning? That's a fun one to kick around, man. Everybody wants Peyton Manning back into the fold somehow, whether it be ownership group, coach. He's not going to come coach. I mean, it's fun to think about it, but he has not coached anything since he retired. He to bring him in would be a very long shot. It would be fun for sure. And he's a brilliant mind. Peyton Manning could probably do a pretty good job coaching. I'd like to see him get a little bit of a coaching gig to just see that he is interested, but I don't know. I mean, maybe he's the mystery candidate and I didn't even think about it. Ron, what do you think? Is he the mystery candidate?
That was I was actually he was actually the first person that came to mind when I was
Okay.
released. I was like, connections to Denver, a mystery candidate, a mastermind when it comes to offensive prowess. Peyton Manning would definitely be a great candidate for the head coaching job, and of course, he already knows Russ, right? So
Yep.
that would have been great.
Yeah.
But
He'd get butts in
I think
seats.
with Peyton Manning, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I don't see it happening with Peyton Manning, and I know he's with his kids now, and he's looks like he's enjoying that retirement life.
He
So
he would get butts and seats, that's for sure, man. Ron, fans would
definitely
be
for sure.
clamoring back to get the butts in the seats. So that is a mystery candidate I didn't even consider, but it would be a fun one. Ernie coming in, no Sean Payton, the last comment, and we appreciate all the comments. We're gonna start to just wind down this show. We appreciate everybody coming in here. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the comments. It was a great conversation. Don't forget to like the show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to Mile High Huddle. We have lots of shows out there. If you want a great perspective, different perspectives, there's plenty out there. So I'm just going to say thank you again. And for Ron, my co-host, me, Thomas Hall, and for everybody at Mile High Huddle, thank you very much. We are going to say goodbye now and dream about mystery candidates tonight, and hopefully someone cool comes along. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Broncos country. Have a great evening.